Greg, this could eventually end up in the lap of the Supreme Court, and then there's no telling when they would decide it.
Well, as you know, Roger, this 11th Circuit has expedited this appeal to a schedule that is so fast that you've got two pleading dates and an oral argument put together within 30 days, which I think is unprecedented for almost any court of appeals. The oral argument is scheduled to occur on May 11th. I would anticipate that the court will move expeditiously. We may have a decision from the 11th Circuit by the end of May. This man has given his word that he will be here during the appeals process. I take him at his word. He intends to meet his commitment, and I see no reason for concern.
And what can you tell us about what Juan Miguel Gonzalez has planned for the first days back with his son here at Andrews Air Force Base?
He is with his family, and that's about it. I must say there was a very touching moment in the room when the INS agents, these 6'2" guys came in, 250 pounds came in, and they had gotten to know Elian and Juan Miguel in the course of the morning, and they were saying goodbye, and they were saying how proud they had been to be able to reunite this family. And that's something. I mean, these are non-emotional, non-sentimental people, and suddenly they had seen the connection and the emotion and the attachment and the love between these two people, and they had reacted to it, and it was a very, very warm scene.
Did the Play-Doh help on the ride on the plane to Washington?
Yeah, I wasn't on that ride. I heard all about the Play-Doh. I will buy stock in Play-Doh.
Judy?
Craig, it's Judy Woodruff again.
Hi.
Representatives from the Cuban interest section or the Cuban government, are they close at hand where Mr. Gonzalez is now with his son?
Juan Miguel went out to the Andrews Air Force Base with his family without either lawyers or Cuban interest section folks at all. Then I went out with our legal team to give him a big hug and congratulate him. And there was a couple of representatives of the Cuban interest section that I hope will assist in providing him with food and clothing and support out there. Otherwise, there's going to be a whole lot of Williams and Connolly lawyers participating in the care and nurturing of this young family. But yes, they're around. I don't see any evidence that they're trying to influence events or controlling events. Juan Miguel is totally in the hands and the custody, and happily so, of the United States Marshals, and is free with his family intact to make any decision that he wants to make. And as his lawyer, I would represent him in any decision that he made. I think he should have the right to choose where he wants to live, and if he wants to live in the United States with his family, I would work very hard to make that possible for him. If he wants to leave the country and return to his home in Cardenas, I think he has that right as well. And I also believe that he should be in a condition, in a situation where he is free to make those decisions, and that they're unfettered and uncoerced and unpressured decisions. And I'm trying everything I can to make that happen. I think it has happened, and that he is a free agent. I know a lot of people disagree with that, but my experience with him is that this man is able to make his own decisions and come to his own conclusions. And although my judgment might be different from his, I can't second-guess his judgment. He is the person that has to decide for himself and his family.
Are you saying that he is actively weighing right now whether or not to move to the United States, to move his permanent residency to the United States?
No, I'm not saying that. I see no evidence of that. I think he is comfortable with his decision to return to the town that he grew up in, to return to his home. And I don't see, I know that he has spent a lot of time with people in Washington, D.C., who have asked him if he had the freedom to choose, what would he choose, in circumstances where he certainly did have the freedom to choose with his family there and present and able to make decisions. This has not just been the Attorney General of the United States or the Commissioner of INS. It's been various congressmen from all parts of the political spectrum, from the very far right who wanted to meet with him and ask him those questions, as well as people from the far left, and from all parts of the political spectrum. So I have to say that my own personal experience with Juan Miguel is that this is a person who is making his own decisions. And people have tested that in a variety of different ways. I mean, the Attorney General has now had 2 sessions with him in her office where there's been no obstacle whatsoever for him to say to her, you know, Madam Attorney General, I would like to live in the United States. Would you help me make that possible? He knows that that option is available to him, and he's not chosen to take that option.
Counselor, we appreciate... I'm sorry, Judy, go ahead.
I was just going to, just to clarify, he's not under any duress because any of his other family members or relatives in Cuba?
No, I think not. He talks with his family members on a regular basis. I've asked how are they doing. I've met his mother, I've met his father, I've met his mother-in-law, and he shows no concern at all about their welfare. They're fine. They're keeping track of him. They care about him. They love him. I think he wants to go back there. It may be hard for us to understand, but he should have the freedom to make his own decision, and our judgments should not be imposed upon him.
Counselor, before we let you go, why are there no plans for father and son to go back to the home of the chief Cuban diplomat out in Bethesda, Maryland? Does it have to do with diplomatic immunity?
Well, I think there was just basic logistics there in terms of space and privacy. That neighborhood's a very small and private neighborhood that got rather upset when the whole host of television cameras and news people came in. And it was impossible for Juan Miguel and his family to leave the house or to go out and walk in the park without having an army of reporters and television cameras follow them around. So it's our objective here to find a place that has more space, that has more privacy, that has more security than the residence in the Cuban diplomat's residence. There's been no problem with that. They've agreed to that, and I think that's a good thing because that gives Juan Miguel all the more freedom to make decisions and the reality of making decisions on his own.
Greg Craig, just one final question. How long before there will be a picture released or cameras permitted to see father and son together?
Well, we asked Juan Miguel if he'd taken any pictures, and he had a small disposable camera that I grabbed as we walked out the door, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get a few pictures out of that within the next hour or two.
Thanks, Counselor. Get twin prints if you can. Well, if it is a tranquil scene at Andrews Air Force Base outside Washington between father and son, Elian Gonzalez and Juan Miguel Gonzalez, it is a far different situation in Miami, Florida, in the streets. And Mark Potter is there for us. Mark?
Yeah, Gene, it's gotten a little rougher here on Flagler Street at the intersection with West 27th Avenue. There's a crowd down there about a couple of 100 feet away that started acting up a short while ago. The police had moved down there, fired tear gas on the crowd to move them away from the actual intersection, and then the police started backing off, and when they did that, the crowd surged forward and they started throwing some rocks. I want to show you a couple. This is the one that hit our camera, the CNN camera, a short while ago. It's a good size one, and it would have hit Rick Hall's head, our cameraman, but he was saved by the camera. And as you can see, the camera's still working. There's another rock I want to show you, the smaller one. That hit a police officer here, Sergeant Bryant, in the knee. He seemed to be okay. You can see the line of police officers just standing here now. It's a relatively, given the context of this situation, peaceful standoff. The crowd is chanting at this moment. If they come much closer, though, I think the officers would be prepared to stop them. They are standing ready with their shields and batons and gas masks on. And, well, now the crowd is coming forward, so we might have another situation where the officers try to disperse them again. They are putting on their gas masks. We're watching this happen right now. Officers are forming a double line, suiting up, getting ready, apparently to make a stand if these protesters come too much closer. This is a smaller group than was here earlier taking over the intersection. There was a time when fires were set in the intersection itself, and on 27th Avenue there was another intersection earlier today. Now the police, as you can see, are moving in, and they're tapping their shields. The crowd starting to disperse. You can see this situation, and there it goes, the tear gas. The bad news, of course, there goes another one. The bad news, of course, is that we are downwind, and a west wind is blowing, so we're going to get off to the side and try to deal with this situation. Obviously, the crowd is being dispersed. As the police move forward, it's very clear they are trying to make sure now that after losing control of this intersection, 27th Avenue and West Flagler, that they resume control of it. And they have just made the point, as they continue to fire tear gas, that they are going to remain in control in this area, this intersection in Miami's Little Havana. It's a business area. Most of the businesses are fine. We saw one window that had been broken at a Chevron gas station. A man was arrested in connection with that, and the police are trying to keep anything else from happening, and now we are starting to feel the effects of that tear gas. And Gene, I'm going to give it back to you.
Mark Potter on the streets of Miami. Judy?
As all this has been going on, much earlier this morning, Attorney General Janet Reno held a news conference here in Washington, a short time after the pre-dawn seizure of Elian Gonzalez. She described the logistics of the operation, and she conveyed the Justice Department's position that no other options were available.
This morning, I commenced an operation with the paramount concern being the well-being of Elian, the safety of the agents, and others. After negotiating through the night, I informed the parties that time had run out. At that moment, I gave the go-ahead for the operation. After I had set the operation in motion, the intermediaries called back to offer one more counteroffer. I indicated that I was willing to continue to engage in dialogue, but that time had run out. I did, until the final moments, try to reach a voluntary solution. Law enforcement personnel were on the scene, were authorized to, and did make the final call as to when to enter the Gonzalez home, because this was a very carefully timed law enforcement operation. 8 agents were in the house during the operation. They were there for 3 minutes. During that time, a female agent picked up Elian and spoke to him in Spanish. The agents then took Elian to Watson Island, where they boarded a helicopter bound for Homestead Air Force Base. There he was examined by a doctor to make sure that there were no injuries. At that point, he was boarded onto a U.S. Marshal's plane headed to Washington, D.C., where his father is anxiously awaiting for his son. Unfortunately, the Miami relatives rejected our efforts, leaving us no other option but the enforcement action. Elian Gonzalez is a child who needs to be cherished, who needs to have quiet time and private time, and to be with his father. And that is what this case is still all about. The bond between a father and son. Juan Miguel Gonzalez wants to be with his son, and that will happen now.
And for more on the moments leading up to the decision to go into the relative's home, we are joined by CNN Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas. Pierre.
Judy, around 4 a.m., the Attorney General felt that the negotiations were going nowhere. She looked around the room, and according to Deputy Attorney General Eric Holder, it was a very somber moment. She asked them all what to do. Each one said that she should go forward. Holder said that Reno had a look of pain on her face as she made the final decision, and she went forward. Now, in Miami, she's being sharply criticized. They're saying that too much force was used, that they traumatized the child. But here in Washington, the White House defended the Attorney General.
The consistent part of these discussions is how often the goalposts have moved. And I think that's something that you all will recognize if you go back and look at your previous stories. But she continued to work patiently until the very last hour.